bring it down an octave, okay?
He can't get in. Hang on a second. Mr. B can't get into the. He's saying on general.
Yeah.
He's saying I can't get into the hangout. So we need to up his speed.
Where's crew? Like, wake up crew.
Oh yeah, crew will have to give him the permissions there. Yeah.
He's not level 2. I never even thought about that.
Oh god.
Yeah, I said it was super ironic that he's only level 1.
Maybe if she chat more.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, he should have access to all.
You said you're watching. It says, "Do you have admin privileges?" I better.
That's funny. Oh, that's so funny.
That's too silly.
Oh no! Your crew said you should be good. Good crew. He's such a hero.
Here we go.
Oh, that's a funny start.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's typically mysterious and dark and strange,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I just don't understand how he can't get in.
This is definitely the inmates running the asylum. That's what someone said.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
You might want to,
That's good,
spend
Amy.
more time
That's good.
in the Discord channel.
Yeah, just ask him to chat more. He'll level up.
Yeah.
No, I think
I need some more to get the level.
I think crew might have fixed it. Let's see.
no, he gave him permissions, I think, so he should be able to.
That's probably going to be an inside joke between the two of them.
I mean,
Okay, Mr. B says hell yeah, which means it's okay to swear in that sense.
Oh,
yeah.
hi, Mr. B.
All bets are off now.
Hey,
Hey.
Mr. Hey, John.
Hey, I guess it's pretty lame.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Mr. Ballin.
My own Discord server, but here I am. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi.
Yeah.
Very
I
ironic.
love that.
Party.
It's so funny.
Welcome.
So excited to be
Welcome.
here.
Hello.
Welcome.
On this 26? Looks like, wow.
Yeah.
So let's see, I know that Lily's in here, Dave's in here, Helene, Amy, you gotta be in here.
Yeah,
You
do
was
the sound.
Helene. Yep, Amy made it.
A whole bunch of people. Well, how cool is it to actually be talking to you guys live now?
Right.
I feel like such a noob for not knowing how to use Discord yet. Other people know all the ins and outs. I'm just slow on the take.
It's
We've been
You
here
gotta be
all
here
week.
more often.
Yeah,
I know, I got
we've been
level
learning
up.
together.
Level.
Yeah,
I
we're
hear
tight
someone's telling a
group.
story. I hear someone's telling a story that's not
Yes.
made for one. So what's the
Yes.
deal? Who's telling the story?
So Mr. B, we've got Busted telling the story, and then we're just gonna have kind of like a watch party and discuss, like, we're gonna go through some of the videos I picked, that are some of my favorites and a variety of your stuff.
Nice.
And then that's pretty much what we got. So
Sweet. Well, I will say that I have an early exit because I'm on daddy duty in about 20 minutes. But I'll definitely be, now that I know how to get into these things. I mean, this is like life changing for me. So I'll be in here. I would love to do these more often. Frankly, I mean, I was tempted to like put out like a post, be like, yo, I'll be on this hangout tonight. But I was thinking about it. And I think it's way cooler to actually talk to the people that are self-organizing in the community already. And the fact that I know a lot of you by name says a lot. So it'd be cool to just keep hanging out with you guys, like kind of the core group here. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You're super welcome.
and just
You're
like,
the
nobody on like my team like knows, like crew literally just found out I was coming on here. Like this is totally spur of the moment, and I like that about this. So let's just keep being real and keep actually being a community.
Absolutely.
oh, we love it.
Thank you all very much.
Love that.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Love it and
Let's
appreciate
go.
it.
Love it.
Everybody loves
Just
being
sit here.
so far.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well-
you brought us all together, so that's kind of awesome in itself.
for sure.
It's the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format. I was just told.
It's delivered in Discord format.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So funny. Well, listen, whoever has the courage here to tell a story, I my hat's off to you. That's awesome. I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it.
You got it, Busted?
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Let's
Real
Gotta get
quick.
the fire going.
yeah, let's have
I'm sorry,
everyone
real
else.
quick,
You? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
My daughter just wanted to say hey to Mr. Ballin real quick.
Hey.
Hey, I'm sorry, who's speaking? Is that Amy? I'm sorry, who is this?
Cameron
No,
Crazy.
this is Cam.
Oh,
And my
hey.
daughter, she's 11 and she's a huge fan and she just wanted to say
Wow. Well, tell her hello. That's amazing. Thank you.
hey.
All right. So I guess we'll mute up here, and then
Great.
Busted, the floor is yours, man.
Sounds good. One last audio check. Do I sound good? Everything coming through all
Yeah.
right?
All good. All good.
Cool.
And already you're winning just for being willing to do this because it's hard telling stories live, dude. My hat's off to you.
Campfire.
Yeah. All right. Before I begin, I want to give a quick shout out to Discord member Faith, who was the first one to drop this anecdote in the chat, and also a huge thanks to Mrs. Schmucks, who I absolutely could not have done this without. She is absolutely telling this as just as much as I am. So without further ado, this is Life and Limb. In the 15th century, Europe was primed for one of the most important periods of time in its history. The years of 1450 to 1550 specifically are referred to as the turning point and included developments such as the invention of the printing press and the discovery of the New World. These accomplishments were made all the more impressive when you consider that this was also a calamitous time marked by natural disasters, famine, wars, and unrelenting illness. England specifically was ravaged by disease in the 14th and 15th centuries, and it was a repeated victim of the second most destructive pandemic in its history. While it was no stranger to influenza, smallpox, and dysentery, plague, and specifically bubonic plague, tore through the island ruthlessly from 1348 until 1480. And it was at its worst between 1430 and 1480 when it said that there was a plague epidemic on average of once every 4 years. But after 1480, plague seemed to let up just a little bit. It didn't disappear completely, mind you, but for 2 to 3 generations afterwards, give or take, it seemed to be almost out of sight. But the people of England were not out of trouble, and what was coming would be something that historians now note that the people came to fear even more than the bubonic plague. All right, at this point, I want to let you know, if you're not a history buff, the next part's probably going to cause your eyes to glaze over just a little bit, but I promise that it is a pretty important part of the story, and it did actually inspire George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones series just a little bit. So in August of 1485, Henry Tudor completed his conquest of the English throne, unseating Richard III to become King Henry VII. During the War of the Roses, an English nobleman by the name of Lord Thomas Stanley had been aligned with Richard III when Henry Tudor had begun his final attack. As Tudor's men closed in on Richard III, Lord Stanley withdrew his forces, citing that they had come down with what he called sweating sickness. This is one of, if not the oldest historical recordings of English sweating sickness, or the sweat. But this retreat was a deception. Lord Stanley's men didn't fall back, and in fact they betrayed Richard III for the would-be king, which allowed him to turn the tide and claim the throne. But after the penultimate battle, this new illness descended upon the victor's men seemingly out of nowhere. They were struck with a sudden headache, and their whole body began to ache. They developed a fever and broke out into an intense sweat, and they couldn't catch their breath no matter what they did. Soon after this, they became confused about where they were or what they were doing. They may have been uncontrollably angry or even saw or heard things that weren't really there. Their hearts were racing and alternated between fluttering and pounding. Then they just collapsed, almost paralyzed, gasping faintly for breath before they ultimately died. This chilling occurrence started mere days into the new reign, and with Henry VII's coronation, it spread like wildfire over the next few weeks as people gathered en masse. And what was more terrifying was that in some cases, it took only 3 hours for someone to go from completely healthy looking to stone dead. The sweat was only present in 1485 for around 2 months, but in that time, it is believed to have claimed the lives of about 15,000 people. The sweating sickness would return 4 more times in England throughout the 16th century, prompting physicians like Dr. John Caius of Gonville Hall in Cambridge to take action. He detailed the illness in his 1552 work, A Book or Counsel Against the Disease Commonly Called the Sweat or Sweating Sickness, which is how we know most of what we know about this disease and how it affected the afflicted. During this time, the medical profession was still somewhat viewed as sort of arcane. It was not uncommon for doctors to apply leeches or to mix herbs to concoct potions for various ailments. During this time, it was also quite common, and in fact, basically in all cases, doctors would recommend to sick patients to scale back on all aspects of life, including eating and drinking while they were sick. And that definitely extended to when they were profusely sweating and becoming dehydrated. I'm sure you can see how that's problematic. In terms of data, no concrete statistics on mortality rates for this illness was available for most of its outbreaks, but historians have actually tracked down documents like deathbed wills that have survived the centuries to put together a glimpse of what it was like during the early times of the sweat. It tended to crop up and disappear very quickly, coming and going within a month or two, very commonly in the spring and fall. And if your town or village was unfortunate enough to come down with sweat, the mortality rate was as high as 50%. And that's not like if you got it, you had a 50% chance of living or dying. That's if your village got it, it was up to 50% of them gone. Physicians like Dr. Caius, as well as a doctor from Normandy, Thomas Forestier, noted that it killed within anywhere from 3 to 18 hours, but no patient they ever saw survived the night. This was a disease that struck and was gone, taking thousands of friends and loved ones seemingly instantly. And this was before cell phones and cars or even established postal routes, so you could go see your friend one day and find out months later that they had passed a week after you left. No funeral, no chance to say goodbye. And no one knew where or when the next outbreak would occur. And so you might imagine the people were terrified. And as it would turn out, one particular family had a very good reason to be especially shaken. Around this time, the Claptons were a powerful Catholic family who lived in the town of Stratford-upon-Avon, a town located about 177 kilometers or 110 miles northwest of London. One of the patriarchs of the family, Hugh Clapton, was a mayor of London for a time, and he even funded the construction of a bridge over Avon River that stands to this day. He also paid for the renovation of a Catholic church, the Holy Trinity Church, on that same River Avon, and had a family crypt built on the church grounds that you can even still visit. This church is also famous because it is the final resting place of the famous poet William Shakespeare, who was a family friend of the Claptons and known to stay on their property from time to time. Now, some of this next part of the story has been obscured by local lore, legend, and lack of official records. But there is a commonly accepted story surrounding a string of tragedies in the mid-16th century that was so infamous it inspired works of famous literature beloved by many of us here. And these tragedies surround a pair of young Clapton women. Margaret, or Margaretta Clapton, was a young woman living in her family's estate in Stratford. She had taken a lover with whom she was deeply in love with. Some accounts say that due to her family's status, she was forbidden to marry this man, but it's more widely accepted that she was abandoned by this man who married another woman. In her grief, she threw herself into a well located on the estate about 300 yards or 275 meters from the house that she was staying in. But as heart-wrenching as this story is, the story of young Charlotte is much, much more chilling. Charlotte Clapton was a young woman and relative of Margaretta and had been living with her in the Clapton estate. A few years after Margaret's death, sometime in 1564, an illness with eerily similar symptoms to the sweating sickness began making its way through the town of Stratford-upon-Avon. Records show that this particular epidemic killed approximately 1/7 of the entire population. And one day, Charlotte began exhibiting these telltale signs. She complained of a headache and body pain. She developed a fever and profuse sweating. She became confused. Her heart started pounding and fluttering, and she collapsed with agonal or those tiny breathless gasps before succumbing and falling into stillness. Her family was devastated, having lost these two in a matter of years, but understanding the nature of an illness like this, they hurried to have Charlotte interred at their family's crypt, even forgoing any burial rites in a desperate attempt to preserve the lives of the other family members. But unfortunately, it was not enough. After a few days had passed, one of Charlotte's relatives came down with the same illness and met his end in the exact same way. Again, this family had suffered a devastating loss, and mere days after losing Charlotte. But again, they knew that if they didn't act fast, it would strike again. They quickly placed the body into a coffin, and they carried it towards the family crypt. They descended the steps that led toward the entrance of the mausoleum and unsealed the door. But what they found inside shook them to their core and would far surpass any horror that they had experienced until this moment. As they entered the pitch-black mausoleum, the air would have been thick and heavy and filled with the stench of rot and decay. The resting place was kept as airtight as it could be to prevent as much of the smell from escaping as possible. Even though the inside was beautifully decorated with these magnificent alabaster tombs and beautiful carvings and etchings on the wall that were perfectly fitting for a powerful family, this was still in effect a mass grave. Excuse me. And when the torchlight illuminated the inside of this gravesite, they found blood smeared across the decorated walls and the lid to Charlotte's tomb overturned and on the ground. Days earlier, when Charlotte was placed into her spot in the Clopton Chapel, she had not been dead. She woke up in absolute darkness and silence, surrounded by the departed, and had fought desperately to get out. They could follow the smearing of blood to her true final resting place, where she was propped against a wall, and it is said that they found her fingers lodged in a crack in the wall in a final bid for freedom. And even worse than that, upon closer inspection, Charlotte, after being without water for so long, dehydrated severely and likely delirious and hallucinating, had bitten deeply into her shoulder, chewing out a chunk of her flesh in a desperate attempt to find anything to quench her thirst. It is unknown specifically what her official cause of death was, be it suffocation from lack of oxygen within the tomb, dehydration, or just collapsing in the shock from the trauma that she had sustained. But the exact portion of the chapel where she was found is now known as Charlotte's Chamber, and in turn, the well that Margaret threw herself into on the Clopton estate, which is also still standing, has been named for her as well. The stories of these two young ladies are said to have inspired stories from one of the greatest writers of all time. Margaret's death is believed to have inspired the famous playwright Shakespeare to create the character Ophelia in Hamlet. In that play, Ophelia is abandoned by her lover, which provokes her to drown herself in a river. This belief has a particular attraction because Shakespeare grew up in Stratford and was aware of the women's stories because he was a known friend of the Cloptons, and he even resided in one of their homes in the 1590s when it is suspected that he wrote Hamlet. Charlotte's death is also believed to have inspired another work of Shakespeare's in Romeo and Juliet. In that particular story, Juliet drinks a concoction and falls into a death-like coma after sending a message to Romeo telling him that it was a ruse to allow him to come in after her burial and rescue her so that they could escape and be together. She's put in her tomb, but due to an outbreak of a plague, the message never gets delivered, and both she and Romeo die in that tomb. Local folklore says that the estate, which again still stands and can be visited, is haunted by Margaret and Charlotte, who are said to walk the grounds. But whether you believe that is obviously completely up to you. That's all I've got. I feel contractually obligated to say that if you like the story and are a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in Discord format, please challenge the like button to a game of thumb wrestling, will ya? But right before the match, tape a thumbtack to your thumb.
Bravo!
Absolutely amazing.
Amazing.
Oh my
I
god.
loved it.
Incredible.
So good.
Snap video.
Thumbtack. Oh my god.
Great
job, buddy.
Great.
That was, and I just found out that you are the first person to volunteer to do a live story. That is seriously huge respect. I admit when I did that live show a couple days ago, I was so nervous at first. It's hard to do these. So I mean, really, that was amazing. That's so cool that you just hopped on here and did it. And I could tell you were super prepared. Your inflection and your tone was awesome. Love the like button thing at the end. That's awesome. Hey man, seriously, well done. I was gonna dip like 10 minutes ago, but I had to hear the end of the story. So great job, man.
That's about
Thanks
the
for staying.
I could
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you all. I'm gonna bow out here. Thank you so much. Invite me to the next one because now I know how to get on these. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, that's
What
great.
a community we have here. Thank you all. Take care. Have a good night. See ya.
Thanks,
Yes,
Mr. B.
Bye.
Dude, you did
Good
so
job.
Oh my god.
Killed it, bro.
Oh my god.
How did you guys find that story?
Faith found it.
Oh,
Literally like a little conversation, and then we made like a little subgroup, like where we all started like sharing stuff, and then she never came back, and so we just kind of kept sharing links between me and Busted, and then we were like, let's tell this story. So I wrote it up and sent it to him, and he put some
man,
flair.
that is fascinating.
I love a good buried alive story.
And I've learned something about my own country's history, which is really interesting too.
Damn, that was good.
You freaking crushed
That
it.
was
dude.
amazing.
I'm so proud of you. I have the biggest
Great.
smile
Well
on
done,
my
you
face
guys.
right now.
I'm gonna give everybody a second before we hop into the videos to just, finish gawking over the fact
Yeah,
that Mr. Ball was
fair.
just in here,
I feel bad for him, being in the presence of someone as great as me. The guy has to change.
Yeah, the modest one.
Too much to handle.
Man, he was probably starstruck. Like,
Oh my god. I know I was. I heard him talk. I'm like, he's in here. He's in here. Oh my god, he's in here. He's in here.
Dude, he literally offered to friend you and help you. Damn, that's so cool.
Insane. Great.
I mean, if you think
I'm
about
gonna-
it,
I'm gonna swear again. I'm about to swear again. Buster, you did fucking amazing. That was absolutely awesome, dude.
Seriously.
I feel like I don't know how PG-13 it is, So I just trying to be.
Just let it rip.
You don't want me to let it rip. You do not want me to let it rip.
I mean, personally, I do, but
Maybe you, but respect for everybody, So here, let me pull up the screen. I figured we could start with a favorite of a lot of the community and start off with one of his older missing 411s.
Nice. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, let's
Oh,
do that.
by the way, is someone else recording this? My recorder keeps shutting off and on.
I believe
so it's
Angel
getting,
Fire was?
choppy. Okay, I got a big chunk of it, but I just want to make sure.
Absolutely awesome. That was so good.
it was Angel Fire, maybe? Somebody was.
Okay.
At least I thought. I'm actually really glad he didn't post this to the general public.
Yeah, for sure.
That would bring
I think-
it. Then it wouldn't be just us.
I think, and that's when you also get those people that'll disturb it, just because they think it's funny,
Right.
But he wouldn't do that because he knew this was like a private thing for the community.
Yeah, exactly.
He couldn't use that. But
And
if they,
we can't. It's really nice that he posted it or didn't post that because it's. There can be a lot of people that come in. So the fact that he wanted to support, our community versus, posting it online, and the respect for us is just, oh my God, that's the reason I watch him. It's absolutely amazing.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Oh my God, he's back. Okay, hi, Mr.
okay. Yeah.
Wait,
Doesn't know
what?
how to log off, maybe.
Did he join?
Maybe.
He just popped it
I
join
don't think
voice
he's
chat.
actually here.
Yeah, I think
He might
Maybe he's
just
just
be
lurking.
he might just be lurking.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like if it would have been announced, there would have been like hundreds of people, and it would have been
It would have
like
been like the live
Exactly.
stream.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So here we go. Pull that up.
I should stop that then.
Then you guys confirm. Yeah. There's my name. I just doxed myself. There you go. No, I don't care.
Coming for you
guys are
now.
so nice. I don't even care. I put my Instagram in the chat earlier. If you guys want to go look it up too, I don't care.
Tracking you down as we speak.
Go ahead. There's not too much to find, you know.
plot twist. You go to his house, it's just a doghouse.
It's just. It's
I bet
got
it's
like
really nice
the
dog
Spike
house.
from Tom and Jerry, you know.
It's got a
Like
little
a half
doggy
address
mat.
with like a dog house in a yard.
Oh, I was gonna say, so for a little bit, just for technical reasons, I am going to put this just at half volume. And then what you guys can do in Discord, if you're not familiar, is you can click on the stream volume, and you can adjust that yourself. If you need help finding that, just let me know. But as long as you guys can find out, I'm just gonna leave it in the middle. That way it's not cranked or too low or nothing. So.
Yeah, it's in the bottom right hand for anybody that's looking.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works on mobile or nothing, but
I could only find that on a PC, and it helped a lot when we were watching the movie the other day.
Yeah.
If you're
It's
on
so
mobile,
quiet.
you just have to swipe up from the bottom to get the options there.
Yeah, I love that Mr. Bolin didn't log off and his
Your mic
children
is on, right?
playing on the background.
He muted. Oh.
That's the scary part. Is you can go back and see the strange and all the weird stuff we say.
I mean, it kind of makes it cool because all of us, or some of us, had kids screaming or playing the recorder in the background. So,
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get this going. I will ask that we mute just for the duration of the video, and then I'm even gonna mute myself. So we'll mute up for that, and then a couple minutes in between, and we'll hop into the next one.
I'll go check on it.
Sounds great.
Yay!